Hi, and welcome back to the podcast of the Pear Garden. I'm Julian.
I'm Ashlyn.
And this is Dr. Green.
Good morning. I am a professor of theater and Africana studies and provost faculty fellow at William & Mary.
And this is the podcast of the Pear Garden. Hi, Dr. Green.
Hi.
Welcome to the podcast.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for being, quite a long trip as you told us earlier.
Indeed.
Yeah. So, before we start with our professional interview questions, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
For sure. I am a theater maker, a director, dramaturg, and scholar. I do publications as well. And what brings me here is the work that I'm doing as the faculty director of the Art and Science Exchange at William & Mary.
Okay.
Before we talk a little more about your background, can you tell us a little bit about the Art and Science Exchange and what that entails, what brings you here?
Absolutely. It is an interdisciplinary platform for faculty and students at William & Mary across art and science. And it is a mechanism for bringing scholars together and practitioners who want to work across the disciplines. And so the culminating event of the Art and Science Exchange is a showcase where teams that have been competitively vetted present public-facing work that they've been working on for the prior couple of months. And so in 2025, which was the premiere of the first round of the Art and Science Exchange, we had 3 teams who worked with faculty and students worked together to produce film. They produced a lab out of our Virginia Institute of Marine Science, where they brought dancers together with marine biologists to do work. There was another event with physics faculty and faculty from the Department of Music who worked with students on developing a synthesizer. They incorporated water. I mean, it was just amazing to see how different faculty across the disciplines could work together with students to come up with new ways of presenting knowledge, right, for the public. And so what I'm interested in with the Art and Science Exchange is creating a space where everyone feels like they are invited and supported to do, the work that is most important to them and work that's going to help to move the world forward in ways that they believe are most useful and generative. And it is probably one of a few different mechanisms we have at William & Mary for doing interdisciplinary work.
Well, thank you. That is a lot. But that's really, really interesting. So what aspect of the Science and Art Exchange is your particular focus right now?
Well, as the faculty director, I focus a lot on the production of it. Okay. So we put out a call annually for new proposals to come forward. I curate sort of the organization of those proposals, making sure that they're vetted, they get feedback if necessary. I manage, the awarding of it. And so after that, then it's the curating the space that is necessary for each team to do their work, promoting each of the events. It's everything.
Yeah.
It's like an artistic director kind of a role when you're trying to produce a major event. You got to think broadly, and then you got to think, at the micro level as well. So what does each team need to do, the work that they've proposed doing? That means contracts, that means travel, that means scaffolding, that means working with university libraries if there's something in the archives that's necessary, if it's a piece of equipment that they need that we have on campus, it's working with the appropriate office to get that piece of equipment so that on the day of their showcase, they have what is necessary. In addition to, I think, working with the individual teams at William & Mary, it's also the work that I might curate myself through the Art and Science Exchange. And so that is specifically why I'm here with you all today because Professor Papailler and I are working through the Motion Capture for Theater Arts Lab, and we have brought the inaugural poet laureate of Williamsburg, Mr. Lacroy Nixon, with us into the lab to work on this project.
We will be interviewing later.
Yes. I don't know when these episodes will be released,
anyway,
though, so who knows. But that is all a lot. You have a lot of work to be doing on this, but that's good. It all sounds very, very interesting. And you mentioned your work with Professor Kristi Papailler, who is one of our professors here at CSUSB in the Theater Arts Department. So we wanted to ask, how has that experience been? You've been working very closely with her here in the Motion Capture Lab.
Yeah. So we started this conversation about what this project could be last year. And so we've had a couple of meetings. I was able to come out to see the lab for the first time last year and meet some of the wonderful team members as well to try to get an idea of what I might experience when I would bring, Mr. Nixon here to work in the lab. And then, we were able to get into the weeds of what the actual project could be this year, this fall. And so now we're here after a series of production meetings where I realize I'm coming into working with a new medium. So it's a little bit of a learning curve for me, but I'm really excited to see where my work can grow as a result of the path making that Professor Papailler has already been doing in this area. It's an opportunity for me to expand, to bring this knowledge back to my home institution, to see where we might build upon it and do some new work for ourselves and students there as well. And so I'm just really excited, to continue on this collaboration. And I was thinking the other day, some projects, they take a long time to germinate. Right, as I said, we started talking last spring, right, about what this could be, and so now we're going to see the manifestation of all of those conversations, and I'm just really excited to see where it goes from here.
So I know you mentioned that you have plans to bring it back. Have you thought about what you're going to do when you bring this technology back towards Virginia?
So as a part of the 2026 Art and Science Exchange, we're doing Lacroy will be the centerpiece of the opening, right? And so we're going to be able to introduce the lab to William and Mary, to the William and Mary community through the work of Lacroy. So that's what it will look like in 2026, and we'll see what happens beyond.
Okay.
All right, so we will circle back to the Art and Science Exchange later on, but for now I want to talk a little bit more about you. Mm-hmm. So you are a professor across both theater and Africana studies. Mm-hmm. How have these intercrossed and influenced each other over time in your studies?
So I was hired as the African American theater historian in the Department of Theater and Performance. At the time, it was the Department of Theater, Speech, and Dance, but went through a name change. And so as the African American theater historian, I teach 2 survey courses in African American theater history, starting with the work of expatriates, moving forward into contemporary forms of playwriting. And then I've also developed a survey course on August Wilson, another one on Katori Hall. I've taught a class on post-racial theater, and I feel like I'm forgetting something. But if you were to look at our curriculum, any of the courses that you see dealing with the work of African American theater history and performance, and my Black Acting Methods class, I teach one of those as well. They're all my classes. And so that's where the intersection appears in my work. Blackness is centered, right? And from there, from that level of specificity, we are able to derive some common ideas, that apply across the all, if you will. But that's the intersection between the two.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
You mentioned that the Black methods of acting and the other classes are your classes. Do you mean that you are the one who kind of proposed them and brought them to life in your department? Indeed.
So when I got there, what was on the books was a course in African American theater history and performance. It originally was taught as a freshman writing seminar with a performance component. I know that because I took the class when I was a freshman myself many years ago. So when I came back, I knew that it was an opportunity to expand. And so having 2 survey courses would allow there to be a bit of a chronological overview, and we could cover more material if we broke it up into 2. And so I started there with the course development. And then I was working on the production of Joe Turner's Come and Gone in the fall of, I believe, 2012, and wanted to teach a survey course on the work of August Wilson. And so I taught it first as a freshman writing seminar, and then expanded it into Africana Studies, and then I opened it up to more senior students. And then, of course, again, it was another production by Katori Hall that brought me to wanting to develop a survey course in her work as well. And so I did. And somewhere in my tenure was this conversation about, have we become a post-racial society? And there were, Black playwrights that did not want to be described as Black and or have their work and their purview limited in that way. They wanted to transcend race. And I was like, oh, okay, this is really interesting. So then we're going to develop a course on this work as well. And so from there, I started teaching in the acting rotation, Acting 1, which is our intro to acting course for students. And then the book Black Acting Methods by Sherelle Luckett and Tia Schaefer came on the scene. And then there's a Black Acting Methods studio. And I was like, okay, so I think there's time, right, to develop a new course in acting. And so thinking about some of my approaches to directing is what informs my particular purview in this course that I call Black Acting Theory and Performance is actually the title of my class. And I use the work of Sherelle Luckett and Tia Schaefer as a foundational text in the course, but then I also introduce other texts and other ways of thinking about how we might enter into the world of performance that decenter some of the more traditional methods and approaches to acting.
So there's been a lot of change since you first got here, mainly by you, huh?
Yeah, in that field, but I think that's what all faculty do, right? When you're hired in a department, I think they're interested in the gifts that you're going to bring and the unique perspectives that you're going to bring to the work. All of these things become tools for all students, right? That's the goal, right? To give them a toolbox that encompasses varied approaches to being the best artists that they can be. Right, and in facilitating their ability to work in any theater that they might want to work on, any production that they might want to work on, right? You should have a well-developed cultural eye, right? So what I do contributes to ensuring that students have a well-developed cultural eye.
That's good.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. I agree wholeheartedly, especially in the arts.
Right.
But that's really interesting because you're doing a project with the arts and the science. So how can having a well-developed cultural eye help someone who's in the sciences as opposed to the arts?
Oh my goodness. I mean, we want the scientist wants to make their work, it has to be able to translate to everybody. Right? Accessibility, I think, is what is the beautiful thing that comes out of these kinds of exchanges. Scientists find new ways and new audiences to tap into. And then the artist, too, also then gains an appreciation for what the scientist does. But I think they also realize we're actually both approaching our work in a methodical way. There is theory across all of this. Some of the things that we're doing, we might call it something different. We might approach the work differently, but we're doing the same thing. I co-taught a course with a professor in sociology a few years ago and realized we're all dramaturgs, right? there's no conversation. This is the way I explain, this to different families that I talk to that come to William and Mary and are interested in, like, what are y'all doing in the arts? I say, there's no conversation that theater cannot be a part of, right? Because we deal in the work of humanity. And in order to construct a world that, we're going to perform in, we got to bring the science to it. We got to bring the math to it. We got to bring history to it. We got to bring sociology to it. We got to bring psychology to it. Right? Because we're creating a mirror for other people to see themselves in. But we, as humans, touch all of those elements in our life. So to best understand a play, which is a reduction of the playwright's thoughts. When we approach it as artists, we then have to go back and take a macro look to look at everything that shaped the micro.
Absolutely.
Right? And we got to bring history to it. We might have to bring physics to it, depending on what the subject of the play is. Right? We might need to bring math to it if we're talking about proof, right? Which was not my strongest subject.
There's a reason we're theater majors.
Okay. Okay. So we are in the business of bringing all the people and all the thoughts and all the subjects together in order to help audiences make the most understanding of a play and the time that they're spending in the theater together make sense.
Absolutely.
Right? So the art and science exchange is interdisciplinary work that I've already been doing. I'm just now doing it in a new way and at the university level. And I'm really interested in doing it at that level because this thing about the survival and sustainability of the arts has been a question for the longest time.
Yeah.
But it seems to be emerging even more so now that we're in the age of what? AI.
Yes.
Right? In some ways, that question is even more critical because people are looking at other ways now to get work done, and they are losing, I think, sight of the very thing that makes us human and makes us connected to one another. And I think makes our interest in AI, I think it's the arts that are going to remind us to be human-centered, even as we engage in this kind of artificial approach to getting work done. And so for me, the art and science exchange is a way to keep the arts visible, even as we move along, right, with the age of technology that we find ourselves in.
Absolutely. Yeah. Assert that it's a part of the human experience and the human condition. It's kind of what I've gotten out of all of that science, math, psychology, all of it, arts, all of that's part of our experiences as humans.
Across all the world, every culture develops math, science, and art at the very beginning.
I mean, and what is fundamental about the art and science exchange is on every team, there has to be an artist. That's a key requirement. So I'm curating a platform that can serve everybody, but I am an artist, and I am interested in our survival and the sustainability of our work. And so there's a desire to keep that at the forefront because I am an artist.
So, do projects like the Art and Science Exchange kind of change what scholarship and research can look like?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, just even in our few production meetings for Infinite Impact, which is the title of the project that we're doing here today and tomorrow, Professor Papailler and I were like, oh, we should be writing about this, right? But like the production of it is scholarship. We are thinking, and we have been thinking about how to do this thing and what all the necessary parts are involved in the production of the thing. This is creative scholarship. It is just as viable as traditional forms of scholarship. And when I say traditional, I mean the things that people are wanting to cite, right? It's just as viable as that kind of work. But the writing of the process, the documentation of the process, helps us make it repeatable. And that's one of the key elements of, some forms of scholarship is, can we replicate this, right? So we got to write it down, one, because we want people to know that we did it.
Yes.
Right? And writing is one way of documenting that we actually did a thing. And then this is how we did a thing. And so now, CSUSB is a leader with the Motion Capture Theater Arts Lab. But they're creating something that other universities who are vested in technological development and applied learning and looking for new research opportunities for students to invest in, we need to write it down because we need to know how to do it.
Yeah.
We need to know, we need to have these pieces of equipment, and these pieces of equipment cost this, and we need a lab that can facilitate that. If nobody's writing it down, we don't know. Yeah. And so I've reached a point in my career where I can appreciate both. I'm a trained practitioner. I have an MFA, just like Professor Papailler. So we are professors of practice. We do that kind of work, and it takes an applied form. But I've developed an appreciation for written scholarship. One, just because of the trajectory of my own career and some places that I wanted to go. Being a joint appointed faculty member in Africana Studies, all of my colleagues are publishing, right? I'm the only MFA holder in the group whose scholarship looks different. So to be in community with my colleagues, I also began to publish, right? But this kind of work, in order for it to be scalable and repeatable, we got to have something tangible. Right, and there's an ephemerality to the work of the theater artist that is beautiful. But sometimes I'm like, I want to be able to do that again.
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
Right, so yes, at some point we got to put our heads together to document, to define the research question and to document this process so that we can repeat it.
No, yeah, documentation is always important.
Very, very.
We were just discussing this morning because we were OTP. We did over the winter break.
It's a student-written run production that we do every year, and we've been trying to document and make sure that we have everything stored. So absolutely, it's the case for all the arts, and even in I'm a visual artist, and so the art shows, getting proof that the gallery openings happened, and that photographs. Exhibition reports, things like that. It's very true, and true across the arts. So what kind of tips would you have for an artist, someone who's a student of the arts, in conducting research and scholarship, in the institutions where we often feel like that's limited to STEM?
At the center, I think, of all pieces of art is a sense of curiosity. And that curiosity takes the artist to places. And in order to understand the places that they're going because of the art, we're right back to the idea of how to develop the cultural eye, right? How to develop a sense of technique, how to develop a style. Those things require you to study others, right? They require you to have a command of language to be able to talk about what you've created. It requires you to have had some exposure. That means you've got to be traveled. So research for the artist, I think, sometimes looks just like the research of the scientist. There's the curiosity, there's the problem, there's their archival work, there's the methodology, right? How we're actually going to do it. There's an understanding of the medium that you're working in. How do you know that what you're doing is new or transgressive if you don't know
Right.
If it's been
what
done.
happened before? Right?
Yeah.
So, like, this conversation is critical because what we're doing is getting inside of the minds of artists to let those that would either minimize or belittle or dismiss the work that we do as, oh, no, no, no. They are just as, right, methodical as the scientist, right? They're just as curious as the scientist. And I think the one thing that distinguishes our work is the fact that we get in and we deal with the emotions, right? We deal with the psychology, like, of people, of humanity. And I think that our work can be as medicinal, right, in an emotional, psychological way, as science also brings a form of medicine, right? And I think we need to work together. Somebody was just asking me, in a slightly unrelated but related, method. So when you go to the doctor, they give you medicine to address the problem, And I said, yeah, but I'm always slightly reluctant to take it, and or I want to engage in, some other, homeopathic methods to complement what it is, because the medicine is going to treat the problem, but I'm interested in how I got here. And that's a different kind of medicine.
Yeah.
And the work that we do as theater artists, I think, speaks to how we got here. Right?
Absolutely.
And it can address that. Now take the medicine, but do this work too. Right? So I think we need both. So again, we're right back to the art and science exchange.
Yes.
Like, these things are working, together. They complement one another. That's what I'm interested in.
Yeah.
Us having those kinds of conversations about what we can do for the betterment of everybody when we bring all our resources together.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree. And like we kind of see that currently with fields like art therapy, music
Yes,
therapy.
yes,
I
yes,
have a friend
yes.
who is studying drama therapy for
Yes.
his senior thesis. So like that's absolutely something that's already being looked into.
Yes.
And the art and science exchange is furthering that in a lot of ways. What kinds of artists are a part of the art and science exchange? It sounds like it's a wide variety, like theater, visual.
Yeah, so last year for the inaugural showcase, we had faculty from sociology, we had faculty from physics, faculty from music, more faculty from music. Yeah, those were the three. And faculty from the from VEMS. And then this year we have faculty from art and art history, theater, classics. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Starting to
This
build
year.
that
Yeah. Building it, yeah.
foundation of lots of different arts.
Mm-hmm.
So, talking about the art and science, we briefly touched on this, but what are you hoping that like people experience it will walk away with thinking about?
Well, I can't wait till y'all interview Lacroy, because one of the things I want you thinking about is just the subject matter of the poems themselves. Okay, that's a treat in and of itself. But, with this particular event, Infinite Impact, I'm interested in audiences seeing, that William and Mary can be like a first choice destination for students who want to engage in the arts and technology.
Yes.
right? Because that is the direction that we're moving in. Now, how can we bring them together?
Yeah. Which is good because as a child, I was constantly going back between both, and they told me to pick one. I picked technology, and I was like, never mind.
No, I don't want us to choose. I want us to do both and.
Both and, yes.
Right?
Which is
Both
good.
and, because the theater work keeps our work human-centered, first and foremost, even as we continue to expand and scale and find new ways of working. Right? But yeah, that we can be a first-choice destination for those who are interested in the arts, right? Because we're going to bring the people together, right? Even if that means we now have new friends at California State University, San Bernardino. And so what we can't do here, maybe we can do in community.
I'm a technical theater major, but they got me on stage quite often.
Yes.
Our boy Jacob off camera is like, he's a tech dude all the way, that we cannot get him on stage no matter
We
how
got him
hard
once.
we try.
In a film, in the background.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of crossover, and I think theater especially.
Theater
I see a lot of
Yeah.
it, a lot of that crossover. And on the topic of infinite impact, since it came up, and we're talking about technology, I was wondering, do you think that the poetry readings will be impacted or changed in any way due to all the technology coming into this production with the motion capture,
Good or bad.
or neutral?
Or neutral, yeah.
No, I don't. If I understand the question correctly, I don't think the poems themselves will change. So I had the pleasure of viewing the recorded performances, right? So I saw them in their original form. Yes, we will lose some of that simply because we're dealing with an avatar and we're not dealing with like the flesh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? But the poems themselves, no, I don't think they'll change at all. I think we have just figured out a way to scale the work of our poet laureate. We have figured out a way to make it even more accessible when we don't have access to the poet laureate. Again, so we're expanding and elevating their platform. I think we're going to make audiences even more curious, right? Not only about the work of Lacroy, but also, like here are more possibilities, like for our own work, more possibilities for the institution, more possibilities for collaboration.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it kind of comes back to that need for documentation you talked about, like saying how if you don't have access to Lacroy for the readings, then you at least have that avatar.
Yeah.
You have these recordings. So that's interesting how that can also play back into that scholarship and the necessity of that.
Yeah, I think there's a thing about the work that we do, this notion of intervisibility, the ability to see, one another, ties in very nicely with the curiosity. And so I'm just grateful that I have the platform I do at William & Mary through the Art and Science Exchange, and grateful for this collaboration that helps to deepen the intervisibility of the poet, right, and the content specifically that Lacroy is bringing.
So for our final question, before we switch over to the poet laureate we've been talking about, we want to ask you, after being part of this, has the way you think about performance changed at all, shifted?
No, I think we're always performing, right? What is shifting for me in a beautiful way is that I'm shifting, right? Not the work. It's me. It's my interest in different mediums of working. So I'm growing as a result of this process. But my idea about performance, no, because we're always performing and we will always be performing, right? But the medium, yeah, that's different. And so I'm just reminded through this work of my own growth, and I think the responsibility of the artist, right, to grow, to expand, to not limit themselves to a particular medium.
I think that's an excellent note to end off on. It makes, I think it kind of sums up the big art and science exchange, that like the work is always going to be the heart, the soul, the humanity, but then the way we look at it.
Will change.
And the way we accomplish it will always be changing.
Yeah.
So thank you for
Thank
that.
you.
You're welcome.
Now, I wish we could end off of that, but we have a very stupid question that was presented by our PPG president. Hi, Brittany.
Brittany's not here, but hi, Brittany.
Hi, Brittany. So should I ask or should you?
I can ask.
Okay.
So, for our question, we ask all of our guests: would you survive the zombie apocalypse?
And how?
And how?
You had no time to prepare for this, but on the spot?
Would I survive? I'm going to do my best.
Okay.
I'm going to do my best. Now, how?
If you have a plan,
Like, even if it's just Spark Notes or something.
although the essay will be due on Friday.
I don't know about that.
Wow.
It's a tough one.
It is, yes.
It's a tough one. Usually we ask people who are here a lot, so they'll start being like, "Oh, I'll use the mocap studio to do this, and then I'll go to the scene shop to do
Yeah,
that."
but
But presuming you're back in Virginia,
Because I am at a loss for words, it sounds like I would not survive the zombie apocalypse.
well,
well, you know
Because
what?
I don't have a plan. But what this question is reminding me is that we need to be ready for anything,
yeah,
right? We do need to have some survival skills.
yes. Otherwise, the only ones surviving right now are Matthew.
Yeah, we've had people answer no before. They're just like, one of our professors, Terry Smith. Shout out Terry.
Shout out
He was
Terry.
like, I'm going to die. I'll just go feed myself to the zombies right away. And we're like, okay, well that's not very optimistic.
I'm not going to feed myself immediately.
Right.
Like, no, I'm going to put up a fight, but
Okay.
the fight feels more physical. Like I'm, trying to avert death in that way. And I don't know. I feel like being in the fire, I'm going to figure out really quickly what tools I have at my disposal.
That's true.
And I will use them to stave off death for as long as I can.
I think that's a very theater mindset. Just like, I will see what I have and make it work.
Yes,
So,
and
Yes, and.
Yes. Okay.
All right, well,
All right, well,
thank you for your
thank
answer
you.
and for tolerating our crazy question at the
yes,
end. It's something we can't let go.
we really can't. So
But thank
don't
you
go
so
away.
much.
Oh wait, sorry.
Okay. Firstly, thank you so
Yes.
much for being here. Those
You're
were really
welcome.
wonderful answers, and I'm excited to see what comes out of the Art and Science Exchange, truly.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for having me. And I look forward to our collaboration over the next couple of days.
Yay! Don't go away. This is a long episode. We're gonna interview now the poet laureate Lacroy Nixon, Star Wars wife. We're back. Anyways, so now we have here Lacroy Nixon from also.
Oh my gosh.
For what it's called.
Planet Mars.
There we go.
There you go.
Mars.
I'm from Southside Mars. You know what it is.
Cool. You
You are from William and Mary, right?
Williamsburg, Virginia. So same city. Yes.
Cool. All right. So before we get started into the real interview question, just for everyone at home, what is a poet laureate?
Yeah. Well, first thing, hi everybody. My name is Lacroy. Lacroy Nixon. On stage, I go by Atlas. I am the founder and executive director of an organization called Slam Connection, and the inaugural poet laureate of Williamsburg, Virginia. And to answer the question, for those that watch Naruto, I'm the Hokage. That's essentially what that means. So a poet laureate, their main focus is being like an official, almost like spokesperson for the arts, for an area, for a city, for a state, for a nation, you name it. So essentially they're like the tip of the spear when it comes to like an arts movement or any kind of movement in that case. So in my case, poet laureate of Williamsburg, there's never been a poet laureate for Williamsburg. So you're talking about 300 plus years of history, like George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Alexander Hamilton, like all these people that have come through this city, that there's been voices in people that have influenced the nation and ultimately the world, but there's never been an artistic voice for that place. That's what I do. So that's who I am. And so my role is essentially creating really more infrastructure for the arts, specifically through the medium of poetry. So I hope that kind of answers the question.
No, yes.
Makes sense, and I like that you referenced Naruto because I
Yeah.
understood it.
Come on.
I know. I was like, now I actually
I'm like,
understand. Yeah.
oh, that's what that means.
Bro.
Wonderful. So when that became official, when you got that news that you were the first ever poet laureate of Williamsburg, what went through your head?
Let me turn the clock back.
Okay.
Let me take you back to, let's see, I want to take you guys back to 2020, right?
Ooh.
Pandemic, nasty work, everything is shut down. I actually went to school, I got my degree in graphic design from Liberty University, of all places. It's a very interesting place. But nonetheless, I got my degree from there. I was supposed to graduate and walk the stage in 2020. The world stopped working, so then 2021 it was. With that being said, came back home, and out in the city of Lynchburg, Virginia, there is a very strong art scene. You have poets, rappers, musicians. They have an academy for the arts that has a performing arts center, like really nice Apollo-style theater, all kinds of cool stuff out there. And there was a whole arts movement that was happening where, like, me and a lot of my friends, we were off campus a lot, doing a lot of work in the community, a whole nother thing there. But I come back to Williamsburg and I'm like, if it can happen in Lynchburg, Virginia, why can't it happen here? Right? Why can't the work happen here? So at that point, I'd been writing and performing spoken word poetry for about 5-6 years at that point. So I was like, all right, what can I do? There's got to be like an open mic or something I can frequent, or somewhere where I can start building that community. I got connected with people down in Norfolk, Virginia. So it's about an hour closer to the water. Get down there. There's a slam team out there called the Verb Benders. At the time, they were 5th in the nation. Incredible team. I'm like, oh, so this is what that's like. I had never been around slam poets before. I was just spoken word, right? And that's when I was like, oh, okay, we can do this. So they have like a season. You got to qualify for the team. I win their grand slam. I qualify for the team. I go to, Southern Fried Poetry Slam, biggest regional slam in the United States. Over 32 teams from around the country go and compete. We finished 3rd overall in 2023. So this is like over the course of 2 years. And during that time, I'm also creating Slam Connection, which is my nonprofit, which is we're a nonprofit organization in Williamsburg that uses slam and spoken word poetry as a means for community action. So regular open mics, slam competitions, workshops, we're talking community initiatives. We partner with our local juvenile detention center, and we have a 6-week program where we're teaching the kids in there how to write and perform. We also partner with the city of Williamsburg with their summer youth achievement program. The list goes on. We do a lot for the community. And it was always about taking that poetry into the community. It was always about creating the intersection of art and not just making the destination art, because people stop at the performance, people stop at the painting or the poem, but then what? Because eventually we all leave the building. Eventually it's like, all right, the show was great, it won the award, awesome, now what? But it was always about creating lasting impact. Everything from working with our local schools and creating youth poets and creating platforms for them to taking our own team to Southern Fried in 2025. We finished number 1 in the state, number 6 in the nation on our first go-round, which is a miracle, but we did it. I say all this to say that being poet laureate is a lot of times less about your skill and more about the work you're willing to put in, right? Granted, like by 2021, I published my first book. It was self-published, but published.
Published.
Yep.
It's
It
published.
counts.
It's on Amazon.
Yeah.
I've sold tens of copies. But like, it's less about how many books you write or how many things you've done, and more about how you're doing the work through the arts to enrich your community. So I mention all these things because these are just like some of the things that I've done over the last 5 years to say, hey, we need a laureate, because Williamsburg, little dot on the map, but it's incredibly siloed when it comes to the arts community. There's a lot that it offers, but if you don't know who this person is or where that thing is, you would never know it was there. Mm-hmm. So 2021, 2022, I'm like, hey, there's going to be a poet laureate in Williamsburg. There's a movement happening in Williamsburg. Williamsburg is known for tourism. It's old money, retirement community. Nobody is thinking like, all right, like they're kind of laughing at me. They're like, all right, bro, like, all right, like, all right, get out of here, bro. Because if you want art, you go to Richmond, which is right capital of Virginia, that's where everything happens, or you go down to the water. So we're talking Norfolk, Virginia Beach, 757 area, down to the peninsula. You don't come to Williamsburg for art. You come there for tourism. You come there to vacation. And so, yeah, when I realized I was going to be the laureate, it was really a 2-year process of writing the infrastructure, because that term didn't exist in the lexicon of the city. Like, there had never been anything. There was no groundwork. There was no blueprint. So I did my own research. I'm connected with the first laureate of Richmond. Shout out Roscoe Burnhams. He was like, hey, this is how we got it done in our city. We went through the libraries. We went through like these channels. So I was like, all right, let me try it in Williamsburg. The library said, we can't help you, but we know somebody that can. Got me connected with the city manager. I was like, hey, I got this idea. We need a laureate. They're like, this is awesome. I can't help you, but I know somebody that can. And then they got me connected with the Public Arts Council, Williamsburg Public Arts Council. They were like, this is awesome. Draft us up a proposal and we'll see what we can do. That the entire process from concept to finished product was about 2 years. And then, what was it, October 2024, they put out the application. They said, hey, if you want to be the first ever poet laureate of the city, you can do that. They came back, before that happened, they came back to me and said, hey, you sent in your proposal for how poet laureate should work. Felt like writing the Constitution. It was crazy. And then they came back to me and said, hey, this is what we did based on the research that we've done, based on some of the needs of the city. What do you think? I said, this sounds great. All right, let me put in my application, see what happens. It was curated. I was a finalist. I pretty much stated my case and my plan in front of the city. They were like, all right, cool. They let me know that I was selected in March and I was appointed in April by the mayor.
Ooh.
So that was April 2025. So yeah.
So you've been doing it for nearly a year now. You've been the poet laureate.
I don't like to talk about it. It feels like just yesterday, but yeah, nearly a year. Like, yeah, it doesn't feel like it because the work it's a lot of the same of what I've been doing. It's funny because when I made the announcement, half of my friends were like, I thought you already were, because I was already doing the work. I was already in the schools. I was already at the Juvenile Detention Center. Slam Connection was already up and running. We had already, like, for the last couple of years, we've hosted the biggest single-day poetry events that Williamsburg had ever seen. So we were already making the move. So by then, it was almost like who else would it be? Right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
I can really relate to a lot of the stuff you're saying about like Williamsburg not being the center for art. We live here in San Bernardino. Me and Julian lived here our entire lives,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's similar. You go to LA or San Diego for the arts, or even Riverside.
For anywhere else
Anywhere
but here.
Right.
So it's a very real thing to want to see that for your city. You know, you look around at the people around you, and you're like, I know you guys have the capacity to be creative.
Yeah.
And something's just got to draw it out of you, which is why it's wonderful you guys are here doing that work here at our campus.
Oh yeah, I'm glad to be here. Like, I think when it comes to, especially cities like Williamsburg or even San Bernardino, like, I think it comes to a place to where when people realize, oh, it can happen here. I think especially when you're around an area for so long, you start to take in the mindset of the area. And it can be hard to think outside of the scope of what that area knows or has seen.
Yeah.
And sometimes it can be hard to be like, oh no, it can happen here.
Yeah.
Again, Williamsburg, at the start of this decade, there were no open mics in Williamsburg. 5 years later, not only do we have one of the most consistent open mics in our scene, we have one of the strongest poetry teams and scenes in our state. That's from youth poets all the way to adult poets. So I'm not gonna lie, work was put in. Don't get it twisted. Now this is not. We were in the trenches, 10 toes. All right, all hands, all feet in the trenches. But it's proof that it can happen. And one of the mindsets behind like Slam Connection, for example, is that if it can happen in little old Williamsburg, Virginia, where can't it happen?
Yeah.
Right. So definitely that.
Well, we will talk a little more about your the Art and Science Exchange soon. But for now, let's
Keep talking about you.
Yeah, let's keep talking about you.
Okay.
So when in your life did you kind of have that spark of interest for poetry? When did it first feel
And
alive?
also, was it part of Naruto? Because you mentioned that, and I know he talks a lot.
All right, so let me get into it. So let's turn the clock back a little further. Sophomore year high school, this is 2011, 2012. It's 10th grade English. You got to write a poem, say it in front of the class. I'm not trying to do that. I'm not trying to do any of that. I was so shy in high school. If you would have told me then that, oh yeah, you're going to stand in front of people and speak, that's funny. But my teacher has me write this poem or whatever. I'm too shy to say it in front of the class. She's like, you know what? It's cool. I'll read it in front of everybody. It was just a villanelle, right? Shakespearean villanelle, whatever. Everybody's like, ooh, whoa, that was crazy. After class, she's like, hey, you should write more. You should do this more. I'm like, all right, cool. I didn't realize that was a whole canon event. That was a moment. But I'm like, all right, whatever, cool. She gets me put into this competition with the NAACP called the AXO competition. Think like 26 different categories for everything from physics to culinary arts to dance, you name it. It's a local competition and a national competition. I go to locals and I go for poetry and engineering. Strange combo, I know. Because I had to write a poem, you had to get it notarized, and at the time, my plan was to go to college, get my mechanical engineering degree, and build roller coasters. So to this day, I know a bunch of just random facts about roller coasters. So if you ever have any questions, I got you. But like that was my plan, right? I win locals, I go to nationals for both categories, I get washed, right? There was some people out there. I was, again, 10th grade going into the 11th grade, competitions in the summer in between. There were people out there that were my age that had already been writing and performing for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, like that had been doing it since dang near elementary school. So I'm like, oh, so this is what poetry could be. I had never seen it outside of the context of the classroom, outside of the context of Shel Silverstein and Walt Whitman, right? That was where I got really introduced to Nikki Giovanni, the legendary Black Ice, Gil Scott-Heron, some of like the legends of spoken word and some of like the primordial figures. And then I was like, okay, that's cool. I still didn't identify as a poet. I was just a guy that wrote a poem. Crazy how that works, right? So that first year, the contest was in Orlando, so that was really cool. I got the chance to go. Second year, the contest was in Vegas. I just knew I was going to win. I was like, oh yeah, we in there. I make it to nationals. We go to Vegas. I get washed again. I lose. I needed to see that. I was like, all right, cool. So that was that. I was like, all right, I guess that's the end of that. Fast forward, go to Liberty. There's this ministry on campus called Bridging the Gap Urban Ministries. They spread the gospel through the performing arts. All right, cool. Somebody somewhere found out I wrote poems in high school, and they were like, all right, so you're joining as a poet, right? I'm like, I don't know if y'all can hear my face through the microphone. I'm like, I don't know. But I joined, right? 2 weeks after I joined, they put me on stage, said, hey, we need 2 poems off of you. I had 1.5. I had 1 and a maybe. So I did the first poem, I do the second one, and I like freestyle the rest of it. To this day, some people don't know that poem was completely unwritten.
That's good.
But yeah, it kind of took off from there. When you join the ministry, they give you like a name. It's kind of like intake process. They give you like a name. My name that I earned was Atlas because I held up everybody around me. And I was like, all right, cool. After that performance, the name stuck. And if it's not broke, don't fix it. Yeah. And from there, I connected with a lot of people in the Lynchburg community, started going to open mics, got invited to go places, speak places. I started seeing what poetry could do. AXO is where I saw what poetry could be, but being in Lynchburg is where I saw how it could shift a community. There was a nonprofit out there called The Listening Incorporated. Shout out Nick George, who started The Listening back in 2012 and did a lot of the great work even up until they just shut their doors in 2024. But they changed the culture of that city through mentorship through the arts. And I'd never seen anything like that. So going off of that, and then I didn't really start to identify myself as a poet until I started going down to the Verb Benders in Norfolk. And I was like, oh, shoot, I think I might have a bad case of poetry, uncurable. And then there was this awesome project called the Hope Booth. Essentially, imagine like a telephone booth, like old early 2000s telephone booth you see at 7-Eleven. But instead of a phone, it's a screen. And for about 3 minutes, you're given an interactive, oh, didn't mean to hit the mic there. You're given a 3-minute like interactive, immersive experience that combines art and technology to give you a message of hope. I'd never seen anything like that. Shout out Gloria Umana, who created it. She's out of Atlanta. She showed me like not just what poetry could be, what it could do, but that, no, it is a tool. It's not just art. We are literally speaking life into people. And the numbers that have come out of that entire initiative, that entire movement, where there are permanent booths that are in the ground in Atlanta, there's one in Korea, there's one that they put in Dayton, they just put one in El Paso. Like, they're starting to pop up around. So if you see one, hey, I say that to say, like, I got a chance to go into the studio and, like, I'm one of the faces and voices that's part of the booth. So, yeah, it started to click for me when I realized, oh, this is more than just an art thing. Like, the art is just kind of like the bridge, it's the gateway, but we're helping people, and there's stats to show it. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, it definitely does, because you see how it's less of like a moment of like, yes, this is what I want to do, and more of just like,
With these snowballed.
yeah,
Yeah.
it happened, and you got bit by the poetry bug.
It happens, man. One thing I say is that hurricanes aren't formed overnight, but one day can flatten a city.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
there you go.
I like that. That's
Yeah.
really good.
So you keep mentioning both slam poetry and spoken word. What do you want to explain what the difference between those two would be?
Let me spin y'all the yarn real quick.
Okay, okay.
Let me bring y'all into the poetry zeitgeist, right? So the iceberg of poetry. On one end, you have page poetry meant to be read. So that's everything you learned in high school, right?
Okay.
So that's your Shel Silverstein, Walt Whitman, Shakespeare, the classics. We love those guys. You have spoken word poetry, which is poetry meant to be spoken, meant to be heard. So that's more your Nikki Giovanni, Black Ice. That's more your shout out my slam poets. You got Black Chakra, Anna Florence, Ebony Stewart, all those guys. It's essentially your approach to it is going to be different. You're writing for the audience. You're writing for the room. You get the privilege of the person is going to hear the words rather than just read them. So now you're intersecting more theater and performance with the poetry. So now your entire approach to it is going to be different. Totally different, like same fruit, different tree. Put it that way. Slam poetry is spoken word in a competition format. So instead of just having kind of like unlimited time blank canvas, you got 3 minutes with a 10-second grace period. You can't use props. You can't use music. You can't use nudity. You have to tell people. There's rules, right? There's a scoring system. So 0 being burn the poem, not the poet. I love you, but don't quit your day job. Like, you're great, just not your poem. Like 0 being that, and 10 being Langston Hughes. Who? Maya Angelou. What? Like, what the heck? Like, that's that. And you can get a decimal place, so you can get a 9.5, an 8.2 kind of thing. So in a typical slam competition, the low score is cut off, the high score is cut off, middle 3 are added to give your score. The highest score you can get is a 30, right? So what happens is, typical slam competition is going to be like 3 rounds, and each round is elimination. So say you have 12 poets, all 12 perform in the first round, but that second round, the lowest 4 scores get cut off, and it goes to 8, and it does again for the final round. So yeah.
Okay. So it's just a subset
Yeah.
of the spoken word.
So it was really, slam was really created back in like the 1980s by a guy by the name of Mark Smith. Some construction workers out in Chicago were getting off work. They go to the bar, be like, hey, they pick like 5 random people from like the bar crowd or whatever. Hey, rate these poems on a scale of 1 to 10. That's essentially how slam got started. Now it's a world sport.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So you did mention quite a few poets. Are there any poets that like inspire you?
Earlier on, poet by the name of Propaganda. He's out here in LA, east of Boyle Heights. He has a very matter-of-fact style. Like, he doesn't have a very flowery tone about him. He just kind of says, you know what, look, it's a duck. That's kind of his style. That really inspired me earlier on because I didn't see myself as really like the finesse writer, like really flippy, flowery, like whoa. Other inspirations, poet by the name of Black Chakra, mentioned him. One of the most winningest poets out there. Like, if there's a Mount Rushmore for like spoken word or like slam poets, he's on there. Gotta put Rudy Francisco on there from San Diego. Legend in the game. He was one of the first poets I saw on YouTube, right? Poet by the name Ayanna Florence. Her style, it's like she bellows with her poems. Her words like cut through the air. You gotta be in the room to see it. She has this one poem that she did that was about anxiety, but the delivery of it was her walking you through an anxiety attack. So the performance is her having an anxiety attack on stage and showing you what it's like and explaining it to you in real time. I had never seen anything like that before. Insane work. The list goes on. I have a lot of different inspirations and whatnot, but being in slam, it pushes my pen. Yeah. Right? It makes you have to try harder, makes you have to do more, makes you have to be more creative. I've seen some diabolical work out there. I'm like, I've never seen anything like that before. So, yeah.
So what would you say your style is then?
Okay, so a lot of times in slam spoken word spaces, they kind of break it down into like Avatar: The Last Airbender, 4 elements, right? So you have, your water benders, people that can make you cry, people that can punch you in your gut, people that will tell that sob story, that trauma story, and can make you feel that, right? You have your earthbenders, which they can be very absolute. They rely on the performance. They rely on not exactly as, like, they can punch, but it's a lot more straightforward. It's a lot more, hey, here's the, boom, there it is. You got your airbenders, which a lot of times airbenders can freestyle, right? Out of nowhere, like, you can get an airbender that'll be like going this way, and they can bring something in from the room and be like, boom. Uh-oh. And you wouldn't know if it's a freestyle or not unless it's something so obvious, but even then, they make it look so seamless. Airbenders have, in my opinion, a very seamless style. Then you have firebenders, very punchy, very punchy. Firebenders, in the deepest sense, can be almost like battle rappers. There's some overlap there. You'll find more of that on that end. I tend to fit more into like the earth and fire bending. Okay. Right, if that makes sense. So yeah. I can be very absolute, but I know how to create a punch that can shake the room, right? And craft a scheme and make something go on. One thing about earthbenders is that a lot of times we keep a metaphor throughout the poem, right? So it's not just like little punches, it's one long, elongated metaphor to explain a complex topic. So there you go.
I'm loving these analogies. I'm actually getting
Yeah, man.
Whoa, we're breaking it down.
Yeah, man.
So talking about your poetry and your style, how about performing one of us?
All right, let's see what we got. All right, this piece is entitled Spider-Verse. It is a piece that I will be doing as part of our series that we will be recording. Let's get into it.
Cool.
I'm caught in a time loop. Because with great power comes great responsibility. I work with kids. That makes me an Avenger. I'm also a poet. That makes me a Peter Parker, an everyday person with radioactive blood flowing through his veins. High school, room 2116. I found out Spider-Man could be a black boy. Since then, I've been swinging through my city, weaving poems together tighter than web fibers to try to catch someone at their lowest. I'm not a hero. I'm just proof that art and elbow grease might save someone's life. Like once, I met a boy who didn't know his creativity stemmed from STEM. Science was his passion, mind bright as the sun, but bullies burnt him out the fastest. He was always glitching, like an anomaly forced into occupying the wrong universe. So they said his superpower was ADHD. Until he got in our program, he started writing. He got behind the mic and said, I wanted to finish that line, but we ran out of funding. Right now, Somewhere across the Spider-Verse, Thanos is snapping his fingers to this poem, but all it proves is that this story never happened. This boy don't even got a name. He don't even got a face, and now his universe constantly folds in on itself like a reality, forced to rewind reality. Universe boy don't name God exist. Thanos been snapping. Somewhere across the Spider-Verse, there's a reality where we look in the eyes of a young person and see exceptional and not just an opportunity for tax exemption. Somewhere across the Spider-Verse, there are friendly neighborhoods where we teach young spiders that they webs can catch dreams and not just cases, cause I've been someone's Uncle Ben, someone's living sacrifice, someone's walking canon event. This be for every child forced to run miles, moralists, as if they are just anomalies forced into occupying the wrong universe, cause I'm caught in a time loop. Because with great power comes great responsibility. I work with kids, that makes me an Avenger. I'm also a poet, that makes me a Peter Parker, an everyday person with radioactive blood flowing through his veins in that same high school. Cross the hallway, cross the Spider-Verse, room 2108. I teach young spiders how to weave poems together tighter than web fibers to try to catch someone at their lowest. We're not heroes, just proof that art and elbow grease will save someone's life, because hey, somewhere across the Spider-Verse, there's a reality where this podcast never happened.
Wow, that was so fantastic.
Wow.
There you go. So, example, the earthbending fire style, right?
Yes.
The idea is seeing across the Spider-Verse the idea of canon events. There are points in our lives that were just meant to happen, right? The story of my teacher, shout out Miss Whitehead, who was my 10th grade English teacher. The idea of me being in her class and her saying, hey, you should write more, that was a canon event, right? But she wouldn't know to say that unless somebody told her, hey, you should teach. You would be a great teacher. And that person wouldn't know that unless they said, you would be a great mentor. And the idea that art is not ours, it's just in our hands, right? We're just the ones holding the torch. We're just the ones with the hammer right now, but eventually we're going to have to pass that to someone else. And if you don't do your part, you're messing up so many other futures by you not standing in your space. So that piece comes out of a place of, I realize how many little things happen to get me to where I'm at now. And it doesn't happen without the little moments, those seemingly insignificant moments where somebody said, hey, you're good at this. Keep going. Hey, that was a great poem. Try to perform it this way. Hey, you should talk to this person. Little things that get us to where we're at. So, yeah.
First off, that was
like
we already said, that was really great.
Beautiful.
Wow. Secondly, I was already kind of thinking this when you were talking about the styles, but spoken and slam poetry feels very very adjacent to theater, like part of theater. And after seeing you, that really solidified it. Like you have it memorized, like it's a monologue.
Yes.
And you have like a specific point you emphasize and specific emotions that you go through with each phase of the poem.
Yes.
That's really interesting.
It was a true performance. Yes.
Yeah.
I think the thing is, rule number one, especially with spoken word or slam poetry, your poem does not have to rhyme. Rhyme is a tool. It is not a requirement, right? Rhyme accentuates the point. It is not necessary to the point. Especially when you have your point or the main thing you're trying to communicate. What tools best illustrate and bring that point about, right? So in slam, I love slam because it gives you a box of 3 minutes and 10 seconds, right? And if you go past that, you lose points, or you could just be disqualified, depending on where you at. You have that much of a box to make somebody relate to you. You have that much of a box to make somebody hear what you have to say and feel it on a deep level, right? You have that much time to say something that will make somebody consider something deeper. And the truth is, there's been a poem written about everything. Like, the poem has been written, but how are you writing it, right? If I write about, like, racism, for example, there's a million poems about racism, but in what context? One of my friends, Daniel Garwood, amazing slam poet, an amazing slam poetry coach. These teams, a lot of these teams have people that will kind of mentor, especially like newer poets, into how to perform and how to bring this thing about, how to bring it to life. He is an amazing resource for just slam poetry knowledge. He has this method called 3-dimensional poetry. If you can tell me who's talking, who you're talking to, and why is the conversation happening, then you can write about literally anything. right? So it's not just you writing, but write about this podcast from the perspective of that stack chair, right? Write about, I don't know, write about this conversation from the perspective of the chord, right? What would the chord have to say? And then you could take that into like you can broaden it and make it deeper. Like a friend of mine, Brianna Dobson, she's one of our directors. She's our director of artist development with Slam Connection. She did a workshop at William & Mary a while back, and one of the students in the workshop, they came up with this concept of writing about sexual assault from the perspective of the monster under the bed. Insane concept, but a lot of it is based on the concept, is based on what are you trying to attack? What are you trying to address, and how can you not just come straight at that thing, but how do you bring the room that it's in? What does it look like in real time? And there you go.
I wouldn't have ever thought about that. Yeah, writing from the perspective of something else like that. That's what poetry's for, right?
Yeah,
That's
Hit the art and science thing.
Yeah,
But now
I
I want to know
start
what
merging.
the freaking chord wants to say about
I
it.
want.
Yeah, what does the chord think about all of this?
What does the chord think about all this? You always use me for connection. I'm always carrying the power of the conversation, but I never have something to say at all unless you look at me. You won't look at me until there's a fray in my character. You don't consider me until I'm broken. And how many times do we not look at the strong friend? There's your poem.
Wow. He just busted that out.
Listen, when you figure out how to do it, you can do it. I'm telling you,
So
you can do anything.
You've got some airbender in you too then.
There is
You
some
do.
air.
You've got some
I've been
airbending.
developing. So I'm literally, side note, I've been writing this poem about what it's like being the poet laureate is a lot like being the avatar, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's less about your skill and more about your presence, right? The minute the avatar was gone from the world, everything went to crap, right? When you think about how my city was before poetry, everything was siloed. You had everybody kind of in their different perspectives. There's a line in there where I'm like, it's like, I didn't know I was poet laureate until I was sitting with a friend. When I was sitting with a friend, I once said something so funny, he finally backed away from the ledge. I could see the spirit world. His ancestors finally stopped reaching for him in the river, kind of thing. So the idea that it's less about being a poet and more about being a person, right? Granted, the poet helps. That helps. Don't get me wrong. It is very necessary, but if it stops there, then you're missing the whole point. So.
Yeah, that reminds me of what we just talked about with Dr. Green in the previous segment of this podcast about how the Art and Science Initiative is it's about bridging the two because it's all a part of being a human. And that's kind of similar with poetry, is that it's like at the end of the day, it's about being human more than it's about being, a perfect poet.
Yeah.
And speaking
I
of,
was saying, speaking of, as much as I'd like to keep talking about you in poetry,
Truly, yes.
let's talk about you in art and science.
Yeah, art and science. Okay, so honestly, I'm new to the Art and Science Exchange at William & Mary. I had heard about it, but this is my first time actually getting a chance to be a part of it and be in depth in it. Like I said, I have some experience with the intersection of art and science per se, with the Hope booth. I was a writer / co-writer for all of the experiences, over 20 some odd, it's over 18 to 20 different experiences that you can find in any Hope booth right now. And there's an algorithm that when you go up to the booth, it's how do you feel? And if it's really bad, you're gonna get a specific piece or specific experience for that. And there's somebody that's narrating you through it. And it's light box therapy, it's sound therapy. It's a lot of different elements that go into this little booth, right? And like I said, it was the first time I saw oh, this is a thing that we can use practically. And I think about 6 months ago, over 100,000 people have used the booths worldwide. 73% increase in hope and positivity after leaving the booth. The numbers are staggering. As opposed to what people were coming into the booth feeling like. And again, over the last 5 years, think about all that's happened over the last 5 years, politically, socially, culturally. People are going through it right now. And the amount of times that you go up to a booth, and I can go here and be no, yes, you can do this. Yes, keep going. Because the mindset was what happens if this booth, for example, is the last stop before somebody makes a terrible decision, or the last stop before somebody takes their own life, right? Or the last stop before name anything that could happen. But they see this booth, and this is the thing that stops them, right? So one thing that happens is like after the booth, it gives, I think, like 5 to 10 mile radius of places you can go and get the help you need, right? Because most people don't get the help because either they can't afford it or they don't know where to go. So, so that was one place where like I saw the work, if that makes sense. I saw my poetry as more than just, you know, really cool stuff that I write and perform. It was like, oh no, like this works. It's like, oh no, like this is, like, this person is doing better because they heard what was originally a poem, right? And now it kind of turned into about like a 90-second monologue that I've narrated them through. They will never know my name. They might remember my face, but they'll remember what I said. And that was really what drew me to this project, like with Arts and Science Exchange and everything that Dr. Green was talking about when she first like said, hey, I really want you to be a part of this project. I was like, oh, this sounds awesome. And the closer I got to it, I'm like, oh, y'all are serious. Like, it's like, this is like, I'm thinking it's like, oh, we're going like Mario Kart racing. No, this is Speed Racer. All gas, no steering wheel, straight rocket cars. I'm thinking, oh yeah, this is gonna be cool. It's like, oh nah, like yeah, we're gonna recreate you in a 3-dimensional space. Rapitan, excuse me? Like, that's insane. And again, nobody's doing that. So it's just the fact of, I've seen what art can do when used intentionally, right? And for good purpose, outside of just entertainment. So, yeah.
So when you heard that your part of the project, the Infinite Impact, as we heard from Dr. Green, was going to be poetry in a mocap lab, what was your thoughts?
Man, I was both humbled and like confused. I'm like, wait, hold on. Because again, I can't think of any other poet just off the top of my head that's done anything like this before. This is some truly trailblazing work. So I'm like, whoa, like what? But then also like, me? Like, I'm just the guy, I promise. No, but it was a moment where I was like, oh, yeah, let's do it. Because what else is, I've done nothing but trailblaze for the last 5 to 6 years. Yeah. You know, again, there was no poetry happening in Williamsburg. And now it's not just me, but I have a team of people and youth poets. This next weekend, we have 13 youth poets from 3 different cities that are going to be competing for a cash prize awarded by the city. That wasn't happening 5 years ago. So I'm like, what's more trailblazing? Let's go do it. Let's just jump in. All right, cool. I had to kind of rethink my pieces a little bit because a lot of my pieces are created for an audience, right? So, and an audience is going to experience a poem the same way they experience a movie in 2 dimensions, right? And even if they put on 3D glasses, it's everybody looking in one direction. I had to think of omnidirectional poetry. So how do I illustrate this scene, which a lot of my writing is very thematic, right? It has a very, very clear tones, whereas some poets are just straightforward, like do, words. Well, I don't want to say words, but like they're going straight at their point. But a poet like me is going to create a scene and create the problem in real time. So you can see it in real time because we experience things in real time. So more of a cross section than beginning to end. How do I do that in a 3D space? So just like looking at my poems, looking at my performances, videos or whatever, and being like, okay, here's where I can accentuate this. Here's where I could try something different here. The confidence grew, of course, as I was on the Zoom calls with everybody, and I was like, oh, this is real. We're going to California. We're going to the West Coast. All right. But yeah, that's, if I had to answer it in a few words, it was both surprised but humbled. So, yeah.
And you've already kind of touched on this, but talking even a little bit more about how you feel like translating your poetry into mocap, like, do you think it will have positive, negative, neutral impact?
I think this is the beginning of a new era. Like, I think projects like this ask different questions. It's 2026. We have access to different technology, different apparatuses. in so many different ways. Like there's so much more we can do with poetry, with different things that we just couldn't do 10 years ago. I think projects like this begin to push the limits of what it could look like to not just do art, but what does art look like on a different plane, in the digital plane, in the digital world? What does art look like, specifically performing art? What does it look like even in like an augmented reality? So say like 10 years from now, you go to a recasting, a reproduction of Hamilton, but it's AR, right? And everybody comes in there, hey, put on these glasses real quick. And the stage and the set, instead of being physically built, some of it is physically built, but the rest of it is projected, right? And you're interacting with the digital space. How art is done is shifting. And then also projects like this, I believe by and large, the role of the poet is shifting in today's culture. With everything going on culturally, like with what's going on in places like Minneapolis, Gaza, the Congo, Ukraine, name anywhere in the world, there's a lot that needs to be said, and we need artists now more than ever. I think the age of you can be dope and be on stage and that's enough is over. I think nowadays there's a place where poets have to be more. Now, granted, one thing, so Slam Connection, we had a podcast kind of going in 2024. One thing that we had said on there was that most of the poets we know, poetry is the second best thing they do. They're typically an educator. They're a community activist. They're a laureate, right? They're a leader. They do something else for their community or for people and they also do poetry very well, right? I think that is leaving, like, being above and beyond. I think that's going to become the status quo of like, it's not enough just to be a dope poet. Like, not saying that it was, but if it was, it ain't now. And I think projects like this not only shows like, oh, look, that's a really dope poet, but also like, wait, hold on, we're pushing the boundary of what poetry could be. Yeah. Right? Think about it, for the longest time, poetry was pen and paper, right? And then poetry was poet and stage, and now poetry could be poetry in digital space. That's different.
So we need to wrap up this interview for now, sadly. But some last thoughts. If there's like some artists, poets, whatever it be, who feel intimidated to start this journey, any tips for them? Anything you want to tell them?
If you're scared, you're doing it right. I promise you, there's never a time. I've been writing and performing for 11 years now. There's never a time I don't have butterflies. Even if it's one little monarch butterfly flying around in my stomach, it's still there. Even in stages that I'm familiar with, and people know me, they know my work. There's never a time when I'm not at least least bit nervous, because it's a respect and reverence for the stage, for the space. The amount of open mics I've walked into and people have been completely vulnerable and they just lost their brother or their friend and they wrote a poem about it, and this is the first place they chose to speak that poem, if they ever speak it again, right? It's a respect and reverence for the stage. You should be concerned the day you get on the stage and you're not nervous. You should be concerned the day you get on the stage and you're not like, oh, I'm about to get on stage, like, because it holds weight. People are going to walk away from that stage with something. And also, what you have does matter. You are better than you think you are. If a lot of times we're our biggest critics, we're our biggest critics. I promise you, you're not as terrible as you think you are. Just try. If I had to make a third point, have a goal. Do you want to get in? Do you want to do poetry just to do it? Cool. Do you want to get on a big stage? Cool. Have a reason why you want to do this, because there's going to come a time when it's going to be inconvenient to write poetry, to perform poetry, and that's going to define whether you keep going or whether you stop. So when it's inconvenient, how strong your why is how strong of a performer, writer, all of that you may be.
I think that is really wonderful advice, and it extends beyond poetry too.
Yes.
I think especially that stage stuff. I mean, we're theater students. We perform and
Constantly.
Always be scared.
Yeah.
Always be nervous to get on that stage. But yeah, that is really wonderful advice. Thank you.
So that was a very beautiful point. Ashlyn, would you like to break it?
Yeah, so that's not where the podcast ends. You guys know this. And I do have to inform y'all, to be transparent, that Lacroy was in the room when he heard it last time.
So he had time to prepare.
So he had time to prepare, but maybe that means he'll have a really good answer. Let's see.
True. Okay, let's
So-
see.
Let us
Maybe
see.
it'll be poetic.
Maybe it'll
Maybe
be
be
poetic.
poetic.
Would you survive the zombie apocalypse?
And how?
Two answers.
Okay.
In the literal sense, I feel like I'd be the guy that has like the secret community that survived, and then I'd be the one that has to sacrifice so everybody can make it out. So, because there's always that one guy
Yeah.
is like, all right, go on without me, I'll make it.
I think that
Gets
works.
you.
Poet laureate.
So
That works.
I feel like that would be that. And then also, in a loose sense, we're already in the zombie apocalypse. People don't know how to think for themselves. So I'd say we're surviving now by creating new things. How you survive the zombie apocalypse? Stay creative.
He did make it
I was like,
poetic.
he did make it deepest answer we've had.
Awesome.
There you go.
All right. Well, sadly, we do have to finish up this podcast. Thank you so much for
Thank
being
you.
here.
This was
Yes, sir.
really wonderful.
Thank you.
So happy to hear your poetry. Good to hear it live and stuff.
It's live and
And
everything.
excited to see what comes out of your project in
Yes.
the Art and Science Exchange.
As well as what you do in the future, because
Yeah.
Oh man, stay tuned. What do you
Yeah.
think?
We will.
Drop your socials or
Oh
something.
yes, follow me on Instagram, Atlas Nixon, all one word. Follow Slam Connection on Instagram, Slam Connection, all one word. On Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. We were on TikTok until it got bought out by the corporations. But yeah, follow us on all the socials, Slam Connection, and follow me, Atlas Nixon.
And
All
there
right.
you guys have it. Go check them out. Go
Thank
check them
you.
all out.
well, thank you for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I guess that was the
This has
podcast.
been the podcast of the Pear Garden. We're back.
So back.
I love to see it.